is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is another live edition of the Complete Center's Guide, and with me, David Russell from Poro. What's going on, brother man? How you doing?
How you doing, buddy? I'm good.
I'm good. It was a interesting Labor Day for me, so I just kind of sat back and kind of really just dived into this topic. What we're going to be discussing tonight, the COVID vaccine, man, the Rona. And so how do Christians kind of approach this? Because let me just put it like this, like in the research I've done today and throughout the entire thing, like this ain't my first rodeo with this virus, with this vaccine, with this talk. Like we done an episode that I recommend everyone go check out, feed.completecenters.com, then /20, just the number 20, right? The number 20. I did an interview with Dr. Noah Chalaya. And no, for those of you who listen to the radio broadcast, no, not Noah, but his dad. So his dad joined me on an episode that we did of CSG a long time ago. And you can tell it was one of those earlier days, bro, whenever I was just kind of, it was only our 20th episode. We're getting ready to release our 60th episode. This might be our 60th episode of CSG, actually. So we've came a long way. So 40 episodes later, you can definitely see the difference, right? So anyway, I highly recommend everybody go check that out. And yeah, I mean, it's a really good intro to vaccines, kind of how they work, what's different about the COVID vaccine versus like a smallpox vaccine or, just different things like that. But with me, the conversation and how do I say this? The drive, I guess, has kind of came back, or not the drive really, but the interest in this topic has kind of came back for me. And it started with a Facebook post that I would I mean, really though, before we jump into this, Dave, what do you like real quick personally? I know we kind of talked off air about this, but how do you and what are you personally doing to deal with, or how are you approaching the COVID vaccine and COVID in general? Like what precautions are you taking? Are you doing anything to, be precautious about? Because I'll just put it like this, for me as a Christian, like I've got the first COVID, like the first one, so the Pfizer one, right? And now after doing some more research into this, bro, like I am seriously questioning whether to get the second one or not. And I'll dig into that a little bit deeper as to why that is, because they are, arguments out there for that, and there's counter arguments, and then there's counter arguments to those, and you know how it goes. Like we can ask why all day long. Here's the two things though, real quick, before David, I get your, input on this. One, I'm not an expert in vaccines. I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert in vaccines. Again, this is an interest that has kind of reignited today. So it's not like I've got all of this, research. Again, I recommend that video that I was talking about earlier. Number 20, just feed.completecenters.com /2020. Check out that video. Do research on YouTube about these things if you want to know more, because like I said, I'm no expert. I'm simply a Christian with some questions. And so I invited you, brother, to come on so we can kind of, talk back and forth about these things. I invite everyone who's listening, who's watching, if you got questions, please put them in the comments below. If it's after the live, show, then I'll get to them if I see them when I can. Yeah, I'm a busy guy. Like I'm really busy, bro. But for real, post your questions in the comments and we will get to them whenever we see them. And so, but here's the thing. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm a Christian. I've got questions about this topic. I've got questions about the vaccine. But David, like I said, how are you approaching the vaccine in general, bro?
Well, I blew the wind of God,
Uh-huh.
and the supernatural heat wave kept the virus away from me. So that's
Hey, there
how I
you go.
approached it. I really looked to Kenneth Copeland and adopted his strategy,
Yeah.
and that's
You
what
just
kept me
smoked that thing
safe.
away,
Yeah, I
right?
just smoked it away, man.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not, but I am a first
It's good.
responder. So it's it's funny because where I work,
Mm-hmm.
our building is empty almost, but we've had an outbreak there,
Uh-huh.
and we've had people that have tested positive throughout the year and so forth. I can't get too much into that, but
Right.
I wrote a book during this time. Well, I helped co-author a book with the Skeptics and Seekers, David Johnson and his team, and Justin Briley joined us, and Randall Rouser on the Christian side, and I wrote a story. I wrote a historical account of basically how Christians responded to pandemics in the past and epidemics, and it was very educational to me to see that, as Christians, they were being praised even by pagans as dying with the pagans and helping them and caring for them and so forth, because a lot of people, they just left their loved ones on the street at times, and they would abandon them and leave them in the house and try to go far away from the pandemic as possible. But in this day and age, we can't really do that. So what do we do as Christians? Well, personally, or as a Christian, I take every precaution I can, but at the end of the day, I have to leave it in God's hands, right? I mean, that's where we're at as far as being a Christian. Second of all, personally, I'm a big hand sanitizer guy. I do it every time I touch something or go out. I think that helps. Although, my wife gets on me about it killing the good bacteria on my hands too. And, we go back and forth there. So there's a lot of stuff. My biggest thing with COVID right now is all the misinformation out there. There are a lot of YouTube scholars and YouTube doctors that come on and give their take, and they've probably never actually graduated from a medical field. So we have that. We have the conspiracy theorists. We have the health organizations out there that promote their agenda and whatever they're doing. So there's a lot of information out there, and a lot of it's bad information, and a lot of it's good information, and then there's a lot of it that's just not in the middle. It kind of leaves you like, okay, well, what do we do? And I have heard professionals say one thing and professionals say the other. So that's kind of where I'm at, bro. So personally, I haven't gotten the vaccine yet. I do, and like you said, we're not doctors, and I won't even pretend to be. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I believe in vaccinations. I believe in the science behind them. And I just wanted to preface that because I haven't received it yet, due to the fact that, according to my doctor and my past history with vaccinations, they wanted me to wait. How long? I go to the doctor maybe every 4 months to do my regular checkups and stuff like that. And, well, not like regular just checkups, but basically talking to them, get my meds filled and stuff like that. But yeah, so they said hold off. So I'm holding off, and we have to see. I guess what they want to do is make sure that the things that were in the vaccine aren't going to give me the allergic reaction I used to have in the past with vaccinations. And I've had vaccinations, right? So I'm not opposed to them, but each time I have to be careful, because next thing you know, they'll be throwing me in an ice bucket, drowning me in ice because my fever spikes to an unsafe level. So it's weird. And I don't think they even know the exact ingredient that messes with me. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah.
So is it like an underlying condition then that causes this a reaction, or what's going on?
I don't know. Even with my half brothers, my one brother, he never had a problem, but my other half brother, he got fevers and stuff pretty bad, but not as bad as mine. So I just don't know where that comes from or why that happens. But my body just doesn't like it,
Yeah, sure.
So that's the only reason that really holds me back. Then my wife has expressed concern over it. We do hear that people have died because of the vaccine. And that's kind of scary. So, it's a very, very touchy subject.
It is.
And that's what I'm here for, to just kind of provide you and the audience with a kind of a skeptic view of this, as well as not saying don't
Yeah.
take it, but I'm not going to say do take it. I will give you my views when it comes to mandates and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
uh, companies and their freedoms and what they want to do to their employees.
Hmm.
But that's all I can give you is an opinion, because I'm not an expert.
And that's
So
what we're here for. Like, that's all I can give as well, is just an opinion on this. Again, I'm no expert. There are plenty of people who are dedicated, who are actively writing, papers and PDFs and all these different things about the coronavirus, about the vaccine, who literally deal with this every day. So again,
mhm.
these are our opinions. So again, we're not doctors. So please don't take that as it is. But again, we do have opinions. And so I kind of want to get into the opinions that I've seen from, well, like you were saying, I don't would it be misinformation? And you know what I'm talking about, the argument that we're getting ready to bring up about aborted fetal cell lines, right? And lining, or what is it, linings?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
lines. Yeah,
Okay, lines.
fetal cell lines.
And so, okay, fair enough. And so yeah, and here's the thing, I just want to read, I want to, yeah, I want to read the entirety of the post because it's not that long. It's a post that I saw in Preborn Rescue. It's a group that I'm affiliated with that just, it's abortion and dealing with that. But I'll just read it, man, and then I'll get David's opinion on it, and then I want to actually kind of dive into this a little bit and read a couple articles. One here from NebraskaMed.com, and then the other from Michigan.gov, actually. So a couple articles there I want to kind of dive into, but first I'll get David's opinion on this. But let me just read the argument, and it kind of goes like this, or it goes exactly like this, just reading it straight from Facebook itself. Okay, so he says, let me be clear. Due to the fact that all three of the U.S. approved COVID-19 vaccines were all created using the body parts, cell lines are body parts, of murder babies in either development, testing, and or production. In short, none of these vaccines would exist without using murdered babies' body parts. I do not just oppose mandates, I go much further. I advocate the abolition and criminalization of these wicked jabs as undeniable fruit of the poisonous abortion tree. Abolish abortion, lay the murdered baby's body parts to rest, and do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly while loving God and neighbor. And so, David, man, on the surface, there's a lot, dude. That it grabs your heart, don't it? And it really does. I think there's a lot of well, let me just ask you this off the top. Is this designed to get at heartstrings? Is this kind of the way this is phrased? Is this designed to do that to someone and pull that kind of out of them? Like, just have an angry response
Well,
automatically to it? Or
it's
what's going on
funny
here?
that, yeah, the pro life movement is not one way on this. Okay, so we have the Charlotte Lozere Institute and the Secretary of Pro-Life Activities, along with the Catholic bishops that are all pro-life council or whatever it is, and they say that it's morally acceptable. It's not abortion and so forth. So
Mhm.
that's the way I look at it. I've seen reports on both sides. I did the research myself, and yeah, I was reading your comment from Slam RN. She's whoever's that knows a little bit more, probably, and they could correct me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I know is that there is uh, no part of the fetal tissue or no part of the cell in
Mm,
the vaccine itself. The mRNA and the Pfizer and the Moderna, they both uh, early on came out with a statement that they used it as a proof of concept, but that's just they didn't really need to. However, when you're doing this type of vaccine, it goes through a purification process as well. So the cell is usually destroyed once the virus grows and reproduces and breaks the cell out, but it still goes into another purifying process as is. So I don't know. So I have a little bit of mixed feelings on some of it, but I believe in the science. I believe it's effective. I don't. I know they use aborted. They use fetal lines from like 1960 and 1985 for the Johnson and Johnson and Janssen or whatever it is, J&J and whatever, and they talk about this purification process and so forth, and you can rest assured, and so does those pro-life groups, that it's completely abortive free from what I heard. So, and what I've read. So I've read about 6 to 7 different articles coming from professionals and information sites specifically designed to talk about these issues. And I feel comfortable in the consensus, because for us at Travis, this is all an appeal to authority, right? I mean, in a way, we're trusting the authorities that know how to do this, that we're trusting the information that they have and the things that they've studied, and we're going along with it. So that's something we also have to take in consideration. But I'm not there doing the work. They are, and they know a little bit about it better than me. So I think what they say is correct. And if I understand anything about cell division, the cells they use from or the cell line they use is many generations from the actual origin site, so, or the actual tissue that it was taken from. And the way I look at it is, they had these abortions back in the day. They're elective abortions. It's not like they're killing babies for fetal research or anything. However, they used something that was already bad and turned it into good. So you can look at it like that. That's how some people look at it. That's how it. I don't know. It is a touchy subject, and I don't want to misspeak. So I'll kick it back to you on that and see what you thought. Tyler, you're muted.
I got to get used to that, man. So I don't have to worry about being muted on the radio. On StreamYard, though, I'm still getting kind of used to this muting thing. But anyway, so again, like I was saying, though, I'm not an expert on this by any means. I said that 100 times already. But at the same time, I think, David, you're onto something. You're absolutely onto it. Because here's the thing. Out of all the research that I've done on this personally, no, there are not aborted baby cells being used. What these cells are something that are grown in a lab. They're cells that are grown in a lab, and they come from, yes, and again, David, do you think that this is misinformation, like deliberate misinformation, or is this just not known? Or, I mean, I don't want to, never mind, I don't want to put in
half
words
the people, yeah, but half the people talking about this, or not, I don't want to say half, but a good portion that are putting the misinformation out there are people that read a couple lines somewhere from whoever they read it from, and they roll with it. So,
right. And that's the thing. A couple things really that you said, man, and I really want to hit on. But one, I think that we have to go with the evidence that we have, right? We have to go by what we have, what we can look at, what we can observe. And like you were saying, talking about appeal to authority, is like, you're absolutely right, man. Like, this ain't my expertise. The Bible is, and even still, like, it's not even my expertise. I haven't developed anything or studied anything long enough to be an expert in it, right? And so vaccines are definitely not that for me. But what I can do is I can read what the people who do deal with this daily, who do work with these, and develop these and all these different things, say. And I want to do that now. I want to go to an article and just, the questions here. It says question, and this is from the Nebraska Medicine, nebraskamed.com. And again, I'll post all these in the description after this is released. But the question is, do the COVID-19 vaccines contain aborted fetal cells? And Nebraska Medicine answers like this. Answer from infectious disease expert and practicing. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting. And David, you can comment on this if you want to, but this is from a practicing Catholic, James Lawyer, who's an MD. But his answer is this: no, the COVID-19 vaccines do not contain any aborted fetal cells. However, fetal cell lines, cells grown in a laboratory based on aborted fetal cells collected generations ago, and that's what you were talking about, you know, back in the 1960s or whenever. I think this actually gives an accurate date on those, but it says they were used in testing during research and the development of the mRNA vaccines during the production of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And here at this other website, Michigan.gov, they say, do COVID-19 vaccines contain fetal cells? And then what's interesting is Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccines used fetal cell lines. Again, a difference between aborted fetal cells and fetal cell lines there, right? But they did use fetal cell lines to produce and manufacture their vaccine. Pfizer and Moderna, however, did not use a fetal cell line to produce and manufacture their vaccines. However, a fetal cell line was used in a very early phase to confirm efficacy prior to production and manufacturing. And if you go back and actually listen,
and that means proof of context.
Yep.
Yeah, proof of whatever, you know, proof of concept. Yeah.
Proof of concept. So what is that exactly? So what I kind of just read, or can you flesh that out a little bit more?
Okay, so to see if I can like really break it down, from what I understand is that this tissue is in a lab, okay, and scientists are able to slow down the natural cell production. So your cell can replicate or divide, should I say, about 50 times, right? So in fetal cells, they're able to slow this process down, and it lasts longer. So instead of with a grown person or an animal or whatever. Okay. So that's what I'm understanding. So once the cell divides from the original starting point, that's where you're getting a line of replicated or divided cells.
Okay, so
replicated, it's not the same exact. It's
but doing there are right, but from one cell comes another, and then you have generations of those. Kind of go down
pretty much. Line.
And that's what.
So that's what. And Pfizer didn't, or Moderna and Pfizer, they didn't even need to do that. Like I said, they just used it as proof of concept. Okay. So that's what I understand. Gotcha.
Gotcha. Shout out to Michael Starr in the comments. He said, "Hey Tyler, good to see you, bro. Good to see you too, Michael. Man, sorry we can't like have you call in. I don't have lines hooked up yet. Like that'd be kind of cool though to get.
You could just give them. You can just put the link to the show in the invite, and they can come on. Whoever wants to come on and discuss this, who knows about it, like Slamar and that knows a lot about it. So I would say that would be a good guest that you could invite in, and you just put that in your comment section.
Let me do that real quick. Let me right there.
There you go.
Perfect. If you want to join,
they'll pop into your quay, and then you can just add them and remove them as you please.
Bet. So I got the power. No, if you do want to join, if you want to join the conversation or want to weigh in on it, click that little link right there, StreamYard.com, and then you got like an NZZ or whatever, you know the link. So anyway,
and you can correct us when we're wrong.
Please do. Please do.
We are medical experts.
Right. But okay, so back to this article. It says, it continues, it is true. Now, this is kind of what David and I were just talking about. It is true that decades ago, scientists decided to use fetal cell tissue to start the cell lines we use to test drugs today. However, the description of ongoing modern fetal tissue harvesting to create vaccines is, and here's the quote, dishonest sensationalism. As a practicing Catholic, I think the moral balance of indirectly benefiting from an abortion that occurred 50 years ago in order to take a vaccine that will prevent further death in the community is a no-brainer, especially considering that so many of the 620,000 American deaths have occurred in the most vulnerable and marginalized in our society. We need to focus on saving lives right now. We need to care for our neighbors. And so again, like this article is kind of saying that no, people did not kill babies in order to harvest their cells in order to make these vaccines. These cells were grown in the lab. And so let me ask you this, David, is there a difference, like what's kind of being portrayed in the article from the Catholic position? Is that a reasonable, or what are your thoughts on that?
I do think it's reasonable. I do
Yeah.
think that you should anything that has gone wrong, or if you can take an evil situation and make it good, by all means. This is not like they're saying these guys just ran into a hospital after an abortion, took it, and then
Right.
no. I mean, this was first off, the abortion was elective, so the abortion had already taken place,
Right.
due to the free will of another human being. At this time, especially in 1960, they still believed until a little bit later that these are just clumps of cells. So they're like, hey, can we have can we have some of these or whatever,
Sure.
and that's kind of how it happened. Is it wrong? Once we find out that those are human beings and should their bodies and stuff be respected, that's where you're going to run into your ethical issue. And I do see a precedent for that.
Mhm.
However, there's also that underlying factor of how they got the cells and so forth.
Right.
And I don't know all that process, so I don't really have a good opinion on how they went about getting these fetal tissues, if it was the mother donating them, or it was the hospital donating them, or whatever. I don't know. I
Yeah.
really don't. I don't know how that works. I don't know how it happens.
Right.
Um, but is there a precedent to respect the dead? And I think that's where your ethical concerns come in. And I just don't have enough information to say yes or no.
Right. Right. I don't know. It's to me, again, I think there's a difference between killing babies to make vaccines, because that's not what we're doing, or whenever I say we, just in general, but that's not what people are doing. They're not killing babies to make vaccines. What they
Yeah.
have done in the past and are continuing to do with those same lines. But here's the thing. Even if there is a problem with the lines themselves, can we not take these cells or these cell lines from, what about natural? And this is what Dr. Chalaya brought up in the episode that I did with him, is that can we not take these cells from a natural abortion? And what I mean by that is miscarried baby, right? Can we not do that? And he said that actually is an argument that kind of blows this one out of the water. Not that we're trying to, do that. I mean, it is a very, what's the word, it's a very sensitive topic for one, and it's a very concerning topic to me as a Christian, as someone who advocates that at the moment of conception, that is life, that is an image bearer of God, with but to get back to the point, whenever we say use these arguments, I do want to examine another argument actually brought up by Dr. Dan Stock, and you can find this video. Like I said, I'll post it in the description. But he actually brings up a really relative argument. And again, there's kind of a rebuttal to this and then a counter argument to that. So I'll go through all this. But I'll just quote him because he, as a doctor, family medicine, he's a practicing, physician in this field. He just says this. And again, I got this from this video that I'll post in the description, but he says, quote, as a matter of fact, well, hold on. Let me, okay, I'll start from the beginning. First of all, he starts out his presentation. What's happening is he's a speaker at the school board, and he's giving reasons for why we should, why they anyway in Indiana, in the state that I live in, should allow, should reopen their schools basically. And the way he starts out his argument is that COVID-19 is spread through aerosol particles small enough to go through every mask. So what's on the topic for consideration at this board meeting is mask and vaccines. And so he starts at, I want to get your opinion on that, David, real quick. With the masks, because here's the thing, why this is kind of relevant to me particular is that at my job, and I won't go into any names or details, like too excruciating details or anything like that, but where I work, we have the option, and again, they're not making us get the vaccine, their words, but they do have this option. Well, not really an option, but you have to wear a mask if you're not full, or if you're not vaccinated. If you don't have your first vaccine, you have to wear a mask. And so before we go on, through what Dr. Dan Stock says, I want to get, your opinion, David. What about masks? What do you think about masks? Are they helpful? I don't think so, because here's the thing, and I'm just going to be honest with you, bro. Whenever and again, I still vape, so I'm not perfect. I'm trying to quit, but I've quit smoking cigarettes, thank God. And so I'm trying to quit, and vaping's kind of my next step in that. But irrelevant. The point that I'm trying to make is,
Are you feeling convicted?
No, I'm not, but I do just want to kind of give
there's
that,
nothing in the Bible that
disclaimer.
says you can't have a vape.
Fair enough. But the point, fair enough. But the point is, whenever I vape and I have a mask on and I blow, it goes up instead of out. That's really the only thing that happens.
Well, you should be vaping outside to begin with and not having to worry about that. You shouldn't even have a mask on when you're outside.
You shouldn't have a mask on when you're vaping, but but the point is, whenever you exhale, if you do have COVID, you have a mask on. If you sneeze, and I'm telling you, if it's not skin tight, if it's not a respirator that no air is getting in or out, then you are just blowing it into the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the thing, and with what Dr. Dan Stock's saying is, even with the mask, that those particles are so small, we can track this virus through aerosol particles, through particles in the air, right? And so they're so small that they're going to go through any of these masks that the CDC is saying, here, wear, because we said so.
So two opinions. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
No, go ahead.
I thought you were done.
I am. You're good.
Okay, so two opinions.
Yeah.
And this can lead down rabbit trails that we might want to explore, but I don't think it's very necessary. First, if your company wants you to wear a mask, then that's your company's choice. And if they're going to if you want them to respect your freedoms, you need to also respect theirs. And in this country, they should have a right to tell people and their employees to say, hey, we want this, right?
So that's one thing with employers and employees. There's this contract.
Yeah. So another thing that my company does is they send an email out, right? And they say, hey, if you're feeling sick, stay at home. If you don't have these symptoms, you can come to work.
Right.
I think that's enough to get a past liability. But as you said, there is this notion that masks don't work. There's also counter opinions too. Okay. Yep. But the way I look at it on that opinion is that, hey, if one or two of those particles get caught in the mask and I just happen to be walking in the right place where it's not going to get me, then that's fine. I don't know exactly because, the 6 feet distance thing, is supposedly supposed to happen with the mask. So even if you blow out, let's say, only 70% of those particulates get in the air, but those particulates fall. They're not lighter than air. It's not like they just continue to float. They fall, so if they do lower a little bit of the risk, even with the 6 feet, and I think they had stuff on this when all this started, where they said, okay, look, this is your chances of catching it with a mask on,
right?
And if and being 6 feet away from somebody, and they had a progression chart on it. And I don't know, you may be able to go to the CDC and find that again, but I think that's probably correct. And like I said, these are what the experts are saying, but there are differing opinions, and there's a lot of people that aren't social distancing as well as wearing the mask. So I think there is that factor that's involved. And again, it comes to personal choice. I don't think, if I want to go outside or walk around outside, I don't wear one, because I think for me, it's pointless, because I think a lot gets kicked up outside. And if you're going to get it with aerosol, I think you're going to get it regardless of if you're wearing a mask outside, but if it's already fallen and I touch something, there's preventive measures I can take there. And I think from the last time I heard that most of infections like these are spread by contaminated surfaces and so forth. So
Right, because I
And
think
you know what? I'm going to be honest with you too, bro.
yeah,
A lot of people don't know how to use disinfectants.
that's
You
true.
know, that's a big thing. The wipe something with a disinfectant cloth, thinking it does what it's supposed to do. But
You
what
know,
they don't read, it
yeah,
says you're supposed to take a wet towel that is got a little soapy and wipe and then dry.
yeah,
So there's actual directions on how to use them, but people don't do that. They just take a cloth and
wipe
wipe
it
it down,
down.
and that's it.
So there you
And
go. If
there's a
you're
lot more to it.
using if you're using hand sanitizer cloths in the wrong way, stop it, repent, and start wiping it down with water and soap.
That's right.
Come on
And
now.
well, we got to use both. Like if you're going to use like Lysol,
That's
you
right.
know, you need to wipe the Lysol, then you need to do what it says on the back of the container
Yeah.
and wipe
So
afterwards
I get what you're
and do
saying,
what it
man,
says
and
afterwards. Yeah.
there is reasons, and I think because here's the thing. So everybody, and I hear it all the time that this vaccine is so new, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But at the same time, is this virus is new, and it's not something I think anyway that it's mutating, right? And so it's not something to be just oblivious to. Like, don't be oblivious to it. Take precautions, and you can't stop the spread. And this is kind of the point we'll transition into now. The next thing that Dr. Dan Stock says is that you're not going to make this virus go away. No one can make this virus go away. He says COVID and other respiratory viruses circulate all year long, waiting for the immune system to get sick through the winter and or become deranged, then cause symptomatic disease. These viruses have animal reservoirs, therefore cannot be eliminated and are here to stay. So the two things are, whenever they're not infecting humans, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're always going to affect humans, right? These viruses. But here's the thing. It seems from what's being said here, and again, come to your own conclusions on this, but it seems to me the way I'm interpreting this is that whenever the virus, if it chose to, could go into animals, right? Say we did stop it, with vaccines or whatever, medicine or combination of the two, it's not going to just die out. What it's going to do is realize the hit that it's taken. It's kind of like war, right? And go back, regroup in animals, and wait until it mutates, until it can affect us again. This is the way viruses work. This is the way the flus work. This is why you have to get a flu shot every single year. They're the same. I'm not going to say they're the same thing, but they're both upper respiratory viruses. They both work in the same way by affecting your upper respiratory right? And so there are similarities. And what we're realizing now is that, yes, before, and we're allowed to make mistakes, we're humans, we thought that the summer would kind of kill it off. Now that we realize, and to me anyway, they should have already known this because it came from bats, right? But it's going to have an animal reservoir, so you can go back into the animal, wait, mutate, and all these different things. But here's my thing, David. Here's my thing. Whenever, and this kind of has to do with the vaccine itself, is COVID going to be like the flu in that we'll have to keep getting booster after booster for every mutation? And if so, companies that are regulating and are not regulating but mandating us to get vaccines, are they going to mandate it to where it has to be every year we'll have to get a vaccine, or how's that going to work exactly? What do you think on that?
Well, it'd be a lot like to me the flu virus and their vaccinations. Okay, however, I don't know exactly how this will play out. I don't know. I can't read the future, obviously, but my thoughts would be that, yeah, it's going to turn into something you're going to have to get once a year, probably. They're talking about 3 or 4 months, but I don't know if that's going to be correct down the line. I don't.
Slam, what are your thoughts? Just curious. But go ahead, David.
But
sorry,
yeah, that's I think that's a possibility. Companies mandating, that's again up to the company, and we'll have to respect their freedom as well as they respect ours in not getting it. I hope that I hope that the Constitution will protect us on the aspect of religious exemptions or something like that. Those vaccines aren't a mandated thing. and I don't think that they should be. And I don't think and definitely if the government tries to mandate it, I think they've crossed the line.
Let me get your opinion on something. So I was reading in an article a while back, right, that this pastor, and I forget details, I would have to go back and look for it and to link it, but this pastor handed out to nurses, to people who worked in a hospital, handed out COVID exemption cards that he just made up. Like, this guy's, they don't exist, and he made these up and basically used religion as in Jesus as a get out of getting vaccinated card. Is that's not acceptable, right? That can't be acceptable. And where's that line between, look, my religion will not let me, will not allow me to do this. I mean, I don't want to word it like that, but at the same time, it's kind of, that's how it is, right? Or is it not? What do you think?
Man, that's a big topic. But
yeah.
So let me clarify some things and ask you. You said he made up vaccination cards.
Yeah.
He forged vaccination cards?
As in, I'm exempt from getting a vaccination.
He made it. Did he make his own exemption card, or did he actually forge the CDC card and put exempt because Jesus?
No.
So I guess I don't understand.
To my knowledge, it wasn't. It was just a piece of paper that this guy gave these employees at the hospital that said, I don't have to get vaccinated. I don't know the details on what it looked like or anything like that. But yeah, it had nothing to do. And it was, I don't know. I just, again, saw it on Facebook.
I don't think I don't think it's a problem saying, I'm not getting this vaccine because of my faith. I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah.
I do think it's a problem if your faith doesn't say anything about it and you try to make your faith say something about it, although you're not being honest. You're not being honest with the faith. And I don't know what argument you could make to support that apologetically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Maybe there'll be one in the future that will convince me, but until now, I don't. I think the problem here is going to be not on just a religious issue, but on a state issue, on a government platform, which would be them trying to force us into vaccinations against our will, which I think is criminal.
Right.
And against the Constitution.
What would need to happen in order for something to actually be, if it got to that level, what would need to happen in order to be something to be done about that?
Well, I mean, we have voting, right? We could vote people out of office that are trying to trample on our rights. We can take it to the courts. But yeah, I don't think the government has the right to tell you what you can put in your body in that degree. They can't think that they can mandate a vaccine, just like I don't think they can mandate other things either. I'm for smaller government and non-coercion in a big way. But yeah.
This is the comment that we just got. Christians can't take vaccines as they're developed from aborted fetus cell lines.
Yeah, I would just encourage Susanna to go back and listen to what we said. Again, they're not developed from aborted fetus cell lines. There's no part of the aborted fetus cell line in the vaccine at all. So I would just go back and listen to that entire section, and also do your own research on it, because there's a lot of misleading information out there.
Yeah, but Susanna, we did address this topic. It just, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, maybe. But yeah, I would encourage you to go back and listen to this as well. So let's get into. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on there, David, or do you want to get into AMVE, which is antibody mediated viral enhancement?
No, I mean, sure. Let's go. I know you had a list of questions here, so we should probably get to that because we're running up on an hour already.
We are running up on an hour. So let me ask the questions real quick, and then if we've got time, I would love to go back into this AMVE or put it like this. Listen to the video that I'll put in the description. whenever it says, let me find it real quick. It'll under sources, it'll say Dr. Dan Stock, and then you'll skip to the 15-minute mark. But listen to what Dr. Dan Stock has to say on AMVE or ADE, as what it's normally referred to, and that is antibody dependent enhancement. So Google those, check those out. Very interesting things. But we are coming up on an hour, so let me get to the questions. Let's just, you got them in front of you, David, right? The questions.
I don't have them. I thought you had them.
Okay,
I was
no,
gonna
I
wait
do.
for you to ask them, and then I would respond.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I do. So the first one I have here, ultimately, I think it's a good one. Ultimately, should Christians get the COVID-19 vaccine? After everything we've discussed here, do you think that Christians, or go ahead, David, I'll weigh in on this after you.
As an apologist and a leader, I would encourage people that can get it to get it. I also would advise caution, because there has been side effects, and we don't know the full range of side effects yet. So be cautious. If you feel led to take it, it's a Christian freedom issue. So I don't think there's anything doctrinally or biblically wrong in taking a vaccine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that yes, I think Christians can get it if they feel like they need to get it, then get it. And this really has to do with consult your doctor and consult your convictions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I got an IQ of S72 from Gloria Miller. So.
Yeah,
IQ of 72. Ouch. That's
out of 100 though, David. That's pretty good.
Out of 100.
Pretty good,
Okay,
right? No, your IQ. That's why I invited you on, brother. Your IQ is a lot more than 72. I promise you that. But here's my thing, right? So, as a Christian, I did get the first vaccine, the first Pfizer, and so now I am waiting to get the second. I'm due for it, right? I was due for it on the 30th, and so now I'm waiting, and because of antibody dependent enhancement, that's one of the reasons. Because here's the argument, is that ABD, and again, Slam, you please correct me if I'm wrong on this, and do your own research on this. But what happens is, and this is the conclusion of it, there's a lot of details that go into it that I'm not qualified to say, but I can give you the conclusions of what happens in ADE. Basically, those vaccinated with the vaccine, with the COVID vaccine, we've seen this actually in other vaccines as well. But with the COVID vaccine, what the question is that whenever someone gets infected with the COVID virus after being vaccinated, is there some way in which you will actually develop worse symptoms? And here's the thing. What's the big case now that people have talked about, and it doesn't seem like the I'll put it like this. I'll break this up into these categories: pro-vaccine and not, right? But it seems like this answer, those who are for, that say no, there's no evidence of ADE within the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, even though, and this is what's really important, this is why people are questioning this, is because in the SARS-CoV-1, I guess the first trial of this, or I really don't know the difference between the one without a number and the one with two behind it, but if somebody can comment below what that difference is. But here's the thing. In the SARS-CoV vaccine, the first edition or generation, or however you want to define that, it did have ADE, and we saw that in animals, right? And so what the argument against ADE is now, anyway, is that the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine doesn't experience this condition, or we don't observe this condition in the vaccine. And so what people's question is that with the mutations that happen down the road, it's too soon to tell whether or not it will develop, whether a mutation down the road will develop. Yeah, we might not be seeing it now, but what happens? We're only in the third generation of this virus, right? So the Delta variant, now the Mu, I guess, coming out or whatever. But the point is all of these, like what we were talking about earlier, with the different mutations that happen in the years to come, will one of these strains develop this ADE where you actually get injected with the vaccine, the spike protein, somehow it interacts wrong with your body, with your antibodies. And if you actually contract the virus, it will have worse cases on you, and or it will have worse symptoms. You will experience worse symptoms. And what happened was they found this out in 75% of people in Barnstable, Massachusetts, fully vaccinated. An outbreak happened in the middle of summer whenever respiratory viruses are at their low, right? We don't see outbreaks of flu and the common cold in the middle of July. Why? Because it's summer. Vitamin D, levels are at their highest, and just all of these different things that happen that play a part in why people don't get sick in the summertime. They happen. And what Dr. Dan Stock was questioning is, why are we seeing an outbreak of COVID in the middle of, I forget which, date or which month it was, but 75%, David, people who were fully vaccinated were in the hospital. They, from a virus that really, I mean, ultimately the moderate to mild cases are a lot more than hospitalized, or severe critical cases. And 75% of the people, 4 out of 5 people that ended up in the hospital, were fully vaccinated in the middle of July. And so that's what they're wondering is, did ADE actually have an impact on these people in Massachusetts? What do you got any comments on that, David? Or Slam, have you heard anything about that kind of little case study, or what do you guys think?
I think you should put that question or that comment she put up for the viewers to see if they
Which
go
one?
back through this. The one that says, "Did you know the vaccine that's been given out by Pfizer?" Yeah,
That
there you
one?
go. Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, that's very interesting, and that's something that we need to be on our toes about. If that's true, um, and I don't have the answers. I
Right.
don't. I don't know why these people are getting reinfected, or well, like you said, I mean, it's beyond me, bro. On this, um, Gloria says I need to do more research with someone who retired at the sixth grade level. Grace,
Wow.
grace to you, Gloria. We were also called beta males to believe that coronaviruses are new. No, we know that coronaviruses aren't new. We know that SARS has been around for a long, long time.
That's right.
But the fact is, we need to to be cautionate. We need to be uh, we need to take in all this information and come to our own conclusions. And we also need to do the research, which we have, and that's the cases we're presenting today. Just what we've done, and guys, we're only scratching the surface here. We
Right.
really are scratching the surface. We do not know.
That's right.
We don't know enough. And to your second question, is it too
Yeah,
soon to tell? I think so.
I think so.
I think there's a lot that we don't know. At least us,
Right.
on this level. I mean, if we go back and we just listen to the previous videos of what Fauci says here, what Fauci says there, it changes all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's not normal for something like a virus or something, or that science doesn't change, because it does. But there is a lot of, like I said, misinformation, but there's a lot of information that has changed. And you got to keep up with it. If you're not keeping up with it, you're not doing your due diligence.
Right.
There is several areas. I think one of the things that, how should we respond to how should Christians respond to mandates?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a tough issue. There's the command in Romans chapter 12 or 13, I believe, about us, doing what the government, tells us, and where do we draw the line as Americans, and as Christians. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be something that has to be worked out with your convictions. because we can both sit here and probably give arguments and reasons why it is, and what we should do.
Yeah.
My buddy, he's a pacifist, and he's like, hey, you got to do what the government says here, but if you're a Christian, don't participate in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's so many different
I think
ways we can go about that, man. And it's just I as a Christian in my capacity, I would tell people that you're gonna have to go with your convictions and what you glean from the Bible.
Yeah, I think as far as it is, as you are able, be at peace with all men. And I think that weighs, and reigns true even here as far as it's up to you. And granted, I don't know. One more question, real quick, David, before we start winding down. Is there a place in the Bible that Christians can go with this topic on their mind to whether to look for comfort or answers? Where would you point people to go in the Bible if they have questions, like I don't know what to do, or where would you point people in the Bible? Or if it's, the Bible, and because that's obvious, we have to go other places too, but where else would you point people to go practically?
Well, I would encourage people to read the raising of Lazarus. That's always a wonderful story about trusting in God, and do you believe that He's the resurrection and the life, and those that die here, they don't die, and those that believe in Him shall truly live. Also, that look at the Beatitudes, read the Sermon on the Mount, see what Jesus says about how to interact with society. Glean from what He says. Read Romans chapter 13. Read again the Sermon on the Mount, and that's so huge. Read the parables and how the father is with the prodigal son, and see how we should be in our mercy and in how we portray or reflect God in that splendor. So I would go that route versus and like you said, there's an and to that. Talk to your doctor.
Yep.
Let them give you their information. Because like you said, you don't go to WebMD when you start having symptoms, right? Because next thing you know, you're dying of cancer. So,
right. Right.
Or you're having a heart attack. Right, exactly. Yeah. And there is a caution to that, because we tend to fear the unknown. We fear death. We fear these type of things, and we should be cautious and really get our doctor's opinion on it, and see what the reasons are, and then compare that with things you have read and things that you're discovering as you go. So that'd be my advice.
I think there's no ignorant or there's no excuse to be ignorant. I really do, because we live in a world where literally all of this information is at our fingertips. And granted, some of the articles that I've read, like I had to close 5 seconds after I opened them, because I said, this is above my level. Like I cannot. So take those kind of things to a doctor. Take those. Hold on, Slam. I'm unable to delete my comment. Oh, I don't know what comment she's talking about, but Slam actually sent me an email. So she said the next time that whenever we do this again, that should love to come on. So anyway, we'll try to get something set up with Slam. But I think, like I was saying, ignorance, you cannot be ignorant in this subject. There are plenty of videos out there, and again, like David was saying, if you Google something, definitely don't just stick with one source. Do multiple source research, and that helps you get all perspectives. You hear me say it all the time on the Complete Sinner's Guide. Perspective is everything. Get all perspectives. Don't just rabbit trail down one hole. Explore them all. And David and I, even though if we do have IQs of 72, right, and we are beta males or whatever, here's the thing: we're after truth, and that's something, and that's why I love David, is because and the reason I brought him on, he's just as passionate about finding truth as I am, and that's truth about anything, right? And so that's why I love you, man, and I know we're on the same journey. So
yes, sir.
I really appreciate you coming on, dude. And so we're right at an hour now, man. If there's any last words, bro, that you've got, we can wind down and get out of here, bro.
Bro, I'm good to go, man. I just want to come on here to maybe throw some skeptical bones and
Yeah,
to give a different side of things and explore each side. So
yeah,
I appreciate you having me on. And yes, it is about truth, man. And you know, anything that's true and noble and beautiful and stuff like that, we should be seeking. So
that's right.
yeah, so
Focus on the things above, you know,
that's right.
and don't be afraid. We have not received a spirit of fear. We've received a spirit by which we cry out, Abba, Father, right? We are sons and daughters of God Most High. And still, He's sovereign over a little bitty virus. So, I mean, this is who we rest in. This is who we trust, even with the small microscopic things. At the end of the day, trust God and know that He will get you through everything that you're going through, even if it's through death, on the other side with Him for eternity. That's better. That's what we're all striving for, is to meet Him, be with Him in His presence forever, you know, past death, through sin. Even we have to go through sin to get to God, because one of these days, no more death, no more crying, no more sin, no more death, no more sin, right? Like those two things just in and of themselves, no more corruption. I mean, think about these things, set your heart on these things. We won't be afraid if we do these things. This has been the Complete Sinner's Guide. I've been your host, Tyler Fowler. Catch David Russell and his channel at Pora, P-O-R-A, and we will see you guys next time. God bless, good night, and we are out of here. See ya.